Hi, this is Shauna from the Foiled Fox, and it is another month, so another release, and that we have some real goodies for you today. We're going to be sharing a new Feathered Friends 12. This is a wonderful flamingo. He is so adorable. This is the die set, and then something that we use that was last release, which is Into the Blooms 2. I'll be using that, and then I have something that was a few releases before, which is Blooming Thoughts. Now I don't have it in the fancy packaging, but of course you will have them all in the fancy packaging. These are the two stamp panels that go with the Blooming Thoughts. And then I'm going to be using an oval, and I happen to like the Hero Arts Infinity ovals. Then some paper. I'm going to be using a panel of Bristol paper because I'm going to be doing some ink blending. I always mark it with a B because I don't want to get it mixed up. And then another one where I'm going to cut out the flamingo. Then I have a variety of papers. I have 3 different colors of green. These are green parakeet, pine feather, and Easter grass, and then a pink, which is hibiscus burst, but any nice pink or yellow, and then some white cardstock. So I'm going to start out with the Bristol paper. This is I'm just starting out with an A2 panel for this, and I have some distress inks. This one I'm starting with spun sugar, and I'm going to blend it all over the panel, even though I'm going to be doing a gradation of color. And I like to just get some ink on the panel because it helps with blending all the other colors. So I'm just going to put on a thin layer. And now I'm going on to worn lipstick. And I'm still want to keep the top a little bit lighter so that I do have a nice gradation from light to dark. So I'm going to put on some worn lipstick. Just blend that out, and then I'm going on to the picked raspberry, and as I start to add darker colors, you'll start to see the gradation really come to life. And I do kind of go all the way down and then add the next color, which is festive berry. Now I meant this to be my last color, and it generally is, but I am going to, once I get this all blended, I am going to add a little bit of seedless preserves, which is a purple, but it does kind of darken the bottom a little bit, and I did want just a little bit more, a little richer, deeper color on the very bottom. So here is the seedless preserve. And you'll see what I mean, how it just darkens the red. It doesn't make it purple, it just kind of darkens it. Now with that done, I'm going to smush on some festive berry, and I have some black sumi ink and my trusty bleed proof white ink. And I have a small brush, and I just loosened up that festive berry with a little bit of water, and I'm making some small splatters. This is a small brush, so it only is making small splatters. I'm going to use the same brush with the black. I particularly like to use a small brush with the black because I didn't want some big blotches of black, just some little highlights of black. And then my bleed proof white. I do use a Starbucks stir stick for this, and I've stirred that up, and I have cats, so there are little bits of fur sometimes in the most unlikely places. And then I'm just going to splatter this, and you can see I splatter it first on the glass mat in case there's just a big glob on there and I don't want it to go onto my paper. And I'm just going to sprinkle this until I think I've got it, but I really want quite a few blotches on there. Now that that's all done, I'm going to set that aside to dry. And we're going to go on to cutting out a few things. I've got the Bristol paper for the flamingo I'm going to cut out. I'm going to cut out the oval and the Blooming Thoughts. Now there's my oval. We'll set that aside. And here's the Blooming Thoughts, and I'm going to stamp these. So I am going to put this in the stamp positioner. I'm putting a little bit of repositionable tape so that I can peel it on or off. It's just enough to hold it into my positioner, but it still will peel off very easily. I always, I'm going to start out with the stamps. I usually do for these Blooming Thoughts. It seems to work out best. And I do like to put it in the stamp positioner with it already cut, because I can put it right over the position that I know I want it to be in, and then close the lid. It'll stick to the lid, and then I'm good to go. The only exception to this is there is the smallest of this cluster of flowers, and that stamp is so tiny and so narrow that I do use an acrylic block, and you'll see that. But I'm using New Leaf ink there. These are paper tray inks. And then I got that little skinny stem for the small one, and I've stamped that. And now I'm going to, these are a layering stamp. There's 3 each for the 2 big ones, and then 2 for the little ones. But I'm using, I start from the most populated, so the one that is the darkest and has the most stamping. I start with that, and then I just go from the most heavily populated parts of the stamp to going to the lightest. That's how I do my layers. So I put those in position. They're all on my door there, and I'm using Hibiscus Burst, which is a really nice medium pink. Again, these are all paper tray ink cubes, but and you'll see them in a supply list, but you can use what inks you happen to have at home. I just love these colors though, so I use them a lot. And now I'm going to just stamp it again, because I just wanted it a little bit darker, really to hold up to the border that that background, excuse me, that we just did. So I want these to be a little bit darker. So the next layer is the next that is not quite as populated, and I'm using Raspberry Fizz, which is a really great bright pink. I just love this color. For some reason, it just really speaks to me. By the way, I am spritzing at each time that I do put on some ink there. And then I'm going to just do this little guy. I didn't put that on at first. It only has 2 stamps. So once I stamp this with the Raspberry Fizz, then I will, that'll be it for that. You can see how I turn it around, turn the stamp around one way and then I turn it the other. It's because I'm just wanting to line up as much as I can. It's kind of a free form, but you do get an idea what is up and what is down. Now this is the very lightest. It has very little area that will be stamped. That's what I mean by the very lightest layer. And I'm going to use Amethyst Allure for this. Because I want to introduce a little bit of purple, I'm going to just use this. This is the Amethyst Allure. You'll see here that not a lot stamps in with the purple, which is good. It's just a hint of it. So it's just giving me a nice accent to these blooms. So I'm going to take those out, and we're going to take them out of their little holders there and set those aside. Now I've cut out the flamingo, as you know, and see those little areas right there? One's the little tip of the beak and one's the eye. You can cut it out with black cardstock, but I find it so much easier just to use, I was just using a black Sharpie there, just to color that. It's so much simpler. I don't have to go and cut out the whole thing or just that portion. Now I'm going to start coloring this flamingo. Now I use several colors, and that's you could cut out this flamingo in all one color or a couple of colors and not use any ink at all, but I wanted some shading, so I am going to first put a little bit of the yellow, which is Bright Buttercup and the Summer Sunrise, and then I'm adding in Pale Peony. And I'm going to go on to the Hibiscus Burst, and I'm going to add bits there. We're just going to keep building the color. And you saw I popped out those 2 little pieces. They're up on the upper left of my glass mat there. Those are the rest of the pieces for his little beak, and I want those to remain white, so I pop those out and set them aside so I don't accidentally put color on them. I'm using some Raspberry Fizz, and then I'm going to go with the Amethyst Allure, and then my final color is Royal Velvet, just to give a real intensity of color. And I'm just going to make sure that I preserve some of the yellow, but just use these different colors of pink. You, of course, can use any color that works best for you. But I happen to be traditional and like to have a traditional flamingo with the pink, but a touch of yellow gives it some interest. Now I have those little beak pieces, and I have that tip of the beak that we colored in black. So I'm going to just color that little tip again with black. Even though I'm going to cover it up with black, I'm doing that because I want just to make sure that it has a nice black tip to him. Put a little bit of glue and I'll put that black tip on. Now I'm going to put the one white piece. It's kind of putting together a puzzle when you put these pieces together. And you might want to kind of enlarge this just to get the detail on that beak there. And then in that middle piece, so the tip is black, the middle piece I just took, again, I could have cut it out in pink, but it's so much easier just to use a marker, and I colored it pink. But if you look at pictures of a flamingo, they have a black beak, the tip of it, and then it kind of has this line that goes up for part of it. So I just drew that in. I think I can manage a little line. And then I'm putting his little eye right there. And so his little beak and head are good to go. And now I'll just put that one wing in place, and then his feet, and then I'm going to be done with him. I'm just using some liquid glue. I find that a lot easier when I'm doing pieces like this because I can pick them up and I have a little bit of time to make sure they're on there right. Now I'm going to set him aside, and I'm going to go on to cutting out my Into the Blooms. I am going to just use these colors. I have the 3 colors of green for my big leaves, and then I have a yellow, which is bright buttercup, and I have some hibiscus burst, and then I decided to cut a little bit out of royal velvet. These are, again, paper tray ink paper colors. They do match with the ink, which is really nice. They are a perfect match. Then I used a little bit of bright buttercup and summer sunrise in the center of that yellow flower just to give it a little bit more interest. Now I've taken that panel that we did, that's all dry now, and I've trimmed it on the sides primarily, a little bit on the top. It was an A2, but I've trimmed it down on the sides so it's a little bit narrower, so just a little bit peeks out on the left and the right, but more on the top and the bottom. And I'm taking all these pieces that I created, that just cutting out those blooms from Into the Blooms really gives me a lot of, fills in everything really nicely. And so I'm just kind of getting an idea how I want that all to go because I need to kind of visualize. And now I'm putting a white panel right behind it because I'm just going to leave like an 1/8 of an inch of a border. And then I think I'm going to put this green parakeet bitty big paper from Paper Tray Ink. And I kind of work it out that way where I start with part of the panels and then I decide how I want to layer it, and then I know what sizes I need from there. So you can see how I've layered that all on. And that seems to work out really well. I'm not sure if I'll use the big polka dot or the little, but I think in the end I'm going to go with the small polka dot. And that's just going to cover my card base. So it covers it completely. Then my white panel sets in a little bit. It's slightly smaller, but it's going to be bigger than this gradation, this pink gradation panel. So you can see now I have these 3 layers. And then the oval is going to go on top. I've got a little sticky thing on there. So I use one of those rubber erasers and it just takes it right off. I have some foam tape on the back of the oval to pop it up. Now I'm back to flower arranging. Since I do a lot of cards with flowers, I seem to be doing a lot of flower arranging. I clipped off those stems of the Blooming Thoughts kind of stalks and putting my flowers together. I have a little center And then the flower is going to go together with the pink and the purple and then the yellow. And I think that's going to give me a good idea. I have to kind of get a visual. You're going to see I do this a few times just so that I can then get an idea where I want to go next. Now I decided I'm going to use this Paradise This Way, which is this new set. It's another new set, and it can make these little signposts. So I cut out of white cardstock the little sign part and then the post, and I'm stamping it with cocoa bean, the wood grain, and the same thing for the post. And now I'm going to take some true black, and I have mounted up Paradise This Way, one of the sentiments, and I'm just going to stamp that right on the signpost part. Just like I did with the sample that I did. Put a little teensy of glue. Now you see that the signpost is really tall because that's so that you can use it for lots of different things. But mine, I need to have it really short. But you'll see that in just a minute. So now that I have that, I think I'm just that done. I think I'm going to just glue these things down in position. So I'm going to start out with my leaves. And then I love these little veining that goes with it. I do make them the darker. That's what's out of the pine feather. And the colors, the two colors of green are the green parakeet and Easter grass. And then I'm going to put these blooming thoughts right on top of there. I just love these stalks of flowers. They're beautiful. And they do kind of give you a tropical feel. Then I'm going to put that signpost, and I've clipped off the signpost because I don't need all that, because I'm just going to stick it in there. And you can see I have it kind of pointing upward instead of just straight across. I have some foam tape on my flowers, and I'm just going to press those in place there. And then now I think I'm going to put aloha here. So I have this in position that the flamingo is not down yet, but with black ink, the true black again, I'm going to stamp Oahu. I'm sorry, Aloha, not Oahu. I have Oahu on my mind because my brother is in Oahu, but it's Aloha. Sorry about that. And so that just finishes that. I put the flamingo right in place and it finishes it out. And now I have a very festive and fun and summer card. And I love the background with all that gradation of color. It just makes everything kind of jump off the page. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We would love that. And here are a few items that we use. The Feather Friends 12, which is brand new. The Into the Blooms 2. The Blooming Thoughts Stamp and Die Set. Paradise This Way Stamp and Die Set, which is new for this release. And then, of course, a lot of ink cubes and that. And you can check on the blog of the supplies, or you can pop over to foilfox.com. We have a complete supply list there, and all of these goodies as well as paper tray ink and ink to paper. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Bye.